From the legal desk, this and every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Join us as we deal with your legal issues, questions, and concerns. Also get legal advice from the Scott Borising and Bonnick attorneys at law firm. We take the attorneys right to your doorstep. This and every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. right here on GenSat TV. Hi, welcome to another episode of From the Legal Desk. And of course, we're coming from the legal desk of the Scott Borising and Bonnick attorneys at law firm. And that is located at 10 to 12 Bryan Crescent Road in Maypen. And of course, they have locations in Portmore and also in Kingston. Now, the Scott Borising and Bonnick attorneys at law comes to you this and every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Last week, well, for the last 2 weeks, we have been touching on wills and estates, and that's under their general services. And on the point of services, let me highlight to you some of the services that Scott Borising and Bonnick offers. We're talking about business services such as real estate, corporate, debt recovery, under personal services, personal injury, family law, criminal law, and under general services, litigations and appeals, wills, estates, trusts, and probate. Now this week, we might facilitate a few wills and estates, but we're definitely on the personal services, personal injury. And of course, we have the ever-glowing Mrs. Nicole Scott Bonnick from that very firm to grace us with her presence today. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be here today
She's
again.
always here advising and answering your questions. She's beautiful, natural. Yes. This week, in particular, we want to look at personal services, Mrs. Bonnick. When do we need an attorney? Because that's something that we really need to take into consideration, especially when it comes to personal services. Because we might think, personal injury rather, we might think that, okay, something happens, but do we really need to call an attorney for this? This is kind of a petty thing. When do we need one?
Well, I think personally there are most circumstances you need an attorney at law. However, you have to use your own discretion. If you feel it is petty, then of course you may not need the services of an attorney at law. However, there are things you may feel are of no consequence and it turns out to be far more serious than you thought. Remember, you don't know the law. And I believe that you should always get advice, no matter how petty the thing is, because it can turn out to be of far more importance than you initially think. So even if it is that you go in for a consultation, you will gain from that advice.
Okay, very, very important. But why do you need one?
You need one for many things. Remember, you need it in business. You need it if you're forming a company. If you're doing any business, you need it if you meet in an accident. Even if you're not the driver, you could be the owner of the vehicle and be liable for the accident. Sometimes people the accident may seem very small and then you have claim for all kinds of injuries which can run up to millions and millions of dollars. So in every facet of your life, you do need an attorney at law.
Because you can be cheated or
you can be cheated, you can be shaking hands with your good friend. And sometimes it is mainly in that kind of situation where you believe, this is no big deal. And 5 years down the line, it turns out to be a very, very big deal. You should always get a lawyer. And it's preferably that you have your independent lawyer to deal with your side of the bargain. So even if you're dealing with your good friend, even if you're dealing with your mother or your father or your sister or your brother, my advice is get an attorney. I could recite numerous incidences of father and children, friends, and so on, that at the time seemed like no big thing, and a couple of years down the line, it just blew up and became very contentious and cost a lot of money.
Okay, so when do you don't need one? When we don't really,
I
in an
would say,
instance.
the most I could say that I think you don't need a lawyer is if you have a criminal case and you are the party that's aggrieved, the state will carry out your case. So suppose somebody chop you and you report the matter to the police. You don't need a lawyer
Okay.
because the state is going to carry out your case.
Okay.
So most of those cases in which you are the aggrieved or the complainant, you wouldn't need a lawyer.
Okay. Very,
So
very
in those
important.
matters, and you know, remember that the need for lawyers were so great that the government set up the legal aid system to assist people in affording lawyers. So that just shows you how wide and deep the need is for lawyers. Some people don't have their matters resolved for life because they have issues, but they really do need a lawyer to solve them.
Under personal injury, though, or personal services, what definitely or directly does Scott Borsing and Bonick offers?
Boy, we offer so many things because if you break down your life into what you do, every part of it is vital to your existence. So let us just throw it for instance, you have a business and you are selling it. You need a lawyer. Some businesses have special requirements that lay people don't even think about. Say it's a pharmacy. There are very special requirements for a pharmacy. So you may need a lawyer. Say you need a company to set up business. You need a lawyer to guide you through the process, to set up the company, to help you determine the share value. Let us say it's a will. Again, you need a lawyer. It's so simple, yet it can cost you millions of dollars. Sometimes people make up wills, they are not valid, they are not proper, and they end up being disinherited. So many examples.
Okay. What are the steps, though, if in the event I met in an accident, what are the steps or processes that I have to go through in order to, say, be compensated?
Okay, if you meet in the accident, it means that really you have suffered injury. And so the first thing you need to do is to get a medical report.
Okay.
To say this is the injury you have suffered and that the injury is as a result of the accident. Remember, you can have injury, but it didn't come out of the accident. So the injury has to be related to the accident. But even for that, the lawyer has to request the medical report in the format that they require, because there are rules for when that medical report is submitted to the court, that the doctor has to sign something to say that, you know, what it is for and so on. So you have to start with the medical report.
Okay.
And then you have to go into your lawyer. You have to provide a statement of the report. We have to get a police report because it
Okay.
ought to have been reported to
So
the police.
can you do personal stuff like probably take pictures of the scene?
You should.
Okay.
That is one thing that's really helpful nowadays. If you can take pictures, everybody has a camera phone. So if you can take pictures, it really helps. Not only a picture of the vehicle, but of the road,
Okay.
maybe of the other vehicle, what
Or
side they were
other persons
on.
who were injured?
The other persons who were injured, you can get their names and addresses
Okay.
because
And
they can help to give
eyewitnesses.
you eyewitnesses because you need the
Information.
evidence, the proof. So you can get those persons to help you and give you evidence, and maybe they can join with you as they also will have a claim. So all of those things are really helpful when you have an injury.
And then what happens after that? After we've put it in the attorney's hand, what happens
Okay,
after
so
that?
once the attorney gathers the evidence, the medical certificates, they usually draft a claim, and that claim is submitted to the Supreme Court
Okay.
if the injury is serious enough. So once it goes to the Supreme Court, then really they serve it on the other parties. If it's an insurance company, they serve notice on the insurance company if
Okay.
there is one. And they may enter into negotiation. In my opinion, I believe file first, negotiate second.
Okay.
There are some attorneys who will negotiate, but I find that when you're negotiating, people don't take you all that seriously
True.
because they don't have any consequences. So I was taught file first, negotiate second, because they know that the threat of the action coming up will speed up the negotiation. They will want to negotiate because the cost can become so huge that it's worth their while to negotiate. So
True.
you give them that encouragement by filing. If you don't settle in negotiation, then you go to trial,
Okay.
right? And then
Trial
you have
comes
to
in.
make sure, for example, do you need a specialist doctor? If you have, depending on the injury you have, you tailor, you look at the evidence and see who are the people. You must have like a witness or something.
Okay.
And one of the things that you have to look at too, and that is on the side of the person who, if you're on the other side, say you were the person who owns the car, once you start paying medical bills, it's an admission of liability. Because you're really saying, yeah, it's my fault. You don't say it in words, but they look at your action. So you might only be talking about the damages, that is, how much should I pay?
Okay.
Because once you start doing certain things, liabilities is presumed.
Okay. What about appeal? When can you apply for that?
Well, if you lose the case,
Okay.
that is when you would appeal. You might appeal against the amount of money awarded, or you might appeal against some other issue in the case.
Would you recommend that though? What
It
you can't just
depends.
settle for?
It depends because,
defense.
suppose you get an award against you of $50 million, then it may well be worth your while to appeal.
Okay.
It just depends. You have to look at it and between your lawyer and the evidence and so on, you would have to decide, is it worth appealing?
That's it. Well, those are the steps and the processes that Mrs. Bonnick is advising you on to when you need an attorney in the event you met in an accident. Evidence is key because it helps
Evidence
the
is key.
attorney to know what to do and how to go about doing what they ought to do. But the attorneys will rely on the police officer's report as well, right?
The police officer's report is usually very key
Okay.
in a case like that. But the more evidence you have, the more people who can back you up and say, this is how it goes. Remember, sometimes, you might meet an accident. Sometimes these people off the road might pick you up and carry you to the hospital.
And police not see
And then
that,
you
them
can't
nobody
find
hear about-
anybody
right.
and so on. So sometimes you're in the right, but you can't prove it, And one of the things I recommend doing if there's an accident is to try and find out whether the person has any assets. Because sometimes an award is made, and if it goes over the amount that insurance will pay, you have no way to collect that amount.
Okay.
So people get very confused sometimes because you might get, say, a 10 million award, and the extent of the insurance is 3 million. So you have to figure out how to collect the 7 million. Now, if the person has no property, then how you going to collect it? Or if, so you have to find a way. So you would have to investigate, does he have any property and so on and so forth. Sometimes clients might see an award and you can't collect the award.
Okay.
So you can actually get it and can't collect it because the people can be, what we call a man of straw. So we have to guard against that.
Okay. Important. Now, under personal services, we also have family law, and I have a question under that. It says, under what circumstances do you file for child support?
You file for child support usually when you are separated.
Okay.
So if you are separated, you would file for child support because you would say that the father or the husband or whoever needs to assist with supporting the child. Even if you're not man or wife, you can file for child support.
All right. For example, now this mother, she's a single mother, of course, there's separation, and the father, the child is 2 years old, and the father is giving that mother $10,000 per month, as well as the child is on his health card, his health benefits and so forth. Would you recommend that she takes him to court because she's not satisfied with the amount in that case?
I think it depends on
'Cause
your
she's not
expenses
working.
with the child.
Okay.
But you have an obligation to the child as well. It's not the man alone. And the court is going to look at the man's obligations. because it might not be the only child. He might have other obligations. So, you have to wait.
Okay.
For a 2-year-old, it seems to me that
Not much
10,000,
demand is there.
yeah, so
So
the
10 days.
10,000 along with the child being on his health card seems about adequate unless he really has the means and
Okay.
can do much
And can
better
do
than
much
that.
more. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. And if he's able to prove to the court that, look here, these are my demands and I'm not able to,
The court
then
will not order
Wow.
anymore,
Wow.
I don't think.
Okay. Under divorce and separation, under what circumstances can you file for a divorce or separation?
Okay, you can separate at any time. You don't have to file for a
it.
separation. But if you're going to file for a divorce, you have to be married for at least 2 years. So you can't just ups and file for a divorce. And you have to be separated for at least a year
Before you can file for the
before
divorce?
you can file for a divorce. So those are the circumstances. You really have to show also that your marriage has broken down.
Okay.
And you would have to show that you have sought counseling for the marriage. So it's not just that you can just
Up and-
married today and tomorrow you say, I want a divorce.
I know, Mrs. Bonnie, but the fact that you mentioned the separation, though, is kind of, a little bit more
Yes.
clearer, because if I'm going through a situation with my husband, we've been married for, say, 6 months.
Right.
And he's abusing me, or probably she's abusing him. In that case, we can separate before we
Right.
file for the divorce.
Yes,
And
because you would
after the
have to
2 years,
separate
no,
for a
then-
minimum of a year and have been married for 2 years. After the
Okay.
2 years, you would be able to file.
Okay, so you
And-
don't have to stay there.
No,
can
you
just-
don't have to stay there. But let us say you're being abused, what would be good for you is if you have made reports
Okay.
of the abuse.
Okay.
If you have gone to your pastor and spoken to him about the abuse. If you have asked him to speak to your husband or to yourself as a couple, because the court understands that marriages can break down, but they
Yes.
also are of the view that you should make an attempt to reconcile. So they want to see that attempt to reconcile, because marriage is not an idle endeavor. It is a serious thing. It creates legal obligations, so we have to treat it seriously.
Treat it seriously. A question came in on the point of custody. The person said that I was underage when I got pregnant. I abandoned my child, and a stranger is now growing the child. I am now employed, in good standing. I would like my child back. How can I
Go back for your child. There is no custody order.
There's no-
You didn't give up the child for adoption. Although there may be the child could have gone to child services, children's services, I imagine. So you may have to go through children's services, and they may have to investigate your circumstances.
Okay.
But you have not given up your right to the child. So you would have to show that you're rehabilitated and you're competent and in a position to take care of your child. But I believe you could get that child back.
But what if that family who is now raising the child is defending?
Well, I would imagine they would want to defend, but
Right.
it's not about them.
It's-
It's always what is in the best interest of the child. So when you have a child, it's not even about the mother, father, or whoever. It's really what is in the best interest of the
Of the
child. So the
child.
court always looks at that. But that's why I say that if you can show that the circumstances were that you could not manage a child, but now you're working, you're in a position, I believe that you can get back that
But in
child.
what circumstance can you not get it back? If you had signed off on some kind of adoption?
If you have adopted, if you have
Okay.
given up the child for adoption and that child has been adopted, that child is no longer yours.
Wow.
It now is the child of the person who has adopted. So
Even-
you would have given up all legal rights to that
Wow.
child.
Even if you're in good standing now.
It
and
wouldn't
we're-
matter because you have given up the child for good.
Wow, no, But that's how it is.
That's how it
it's
is.
just the legal way of
Right.
doing things. Funny enough, and we're going back over on lawsuit. In Jamaica, we realize that it's a different law as it relates to overseas. we do
I
things
would not
differently.
say so.
Because, for instance, if I'm walking on the road and I fell in a pothole or something like that, or some open trench, is there much compensation that can be
You
from
see,
that?
you have to know who to sue. So let us say it's the parish council is responsible for the roads. You know, all those entities are government entities, and you know that when you are going against the government, it's much more difficult than going against an individual.
Wow.
I think you only have a year to file a suit against
Okay.
the government, and sometimes because people don't know that, they delay, and maybe whenever they come to the lawyer, they may have already lost their rights. So it's really about knowing what to do and seeking advice and pressing your case.
Okay.
I think in any jurisdiction in the world, if you have a lawsuit and you are not committed to it, you are not going to succeed because there is no court that dispenses instant justice. You have to be ready to stay for the long haul. And I think that what happens in Jamaica is people are hot to trot when the thing happens, and then they get bored because they can't bother and the process is long. I mean, the truth is that they have been working on the court process to shorten things, to
Yes.
introduce
Seen that
mediation
happen.
and so on. And I think they have really been doing an excellent job. But people who want to sue have got to know they're in it for the long haul. And
That's it.
they also have to recognize that, yes, they get a lawyer, but it's their business. It's like when you send your child to school, you don't give it up the child to the teacher. It's still your child. You
Still
still
your
have to
child.
do things. You still have to parent. So it's the same as with a case. It is your business. You are the one who have to make sure that it takes place.
Okay. But that is why some persons don't even bother with the court problem. You know, here what happens. This happens if it's a case with a government road cause my ankle to sprain. Let's just forget about it because me can't bother with the long run
Well,
business.
there are lots of things we can't bother with, but you have to make a personal decision. I mean, there are lots of things in my life I would like not to bother with, but I can't afford not to bother with it because you get stressed out, you're doing
can't
so many
bother to run
things.
around and
Right. So then you can't blame the law, you have to blame yourself.
for those who did not get to send in their questions from last week on general services, they are doing so this week. So we'll still facilitate. The question that we're getting in now, it says, my father died leaving a will, but my name is not on it. He was sick when the will was written, and there are speculations that the writing on the will doesn't matches that of my father's handwriting in previous times. So the wife is suspected to have written and signed the will herself. My father always communicates with me about the land before he died. He even told me to occupy it at one point when he was overseas. So it's hard to know that he would not put my name on the will. But the other children, the wife and the children are now benefiting. What can I do?
Well, I think that if you remember you said that the father was sick, which may explain the difference in his handwriting. So his handwriting would be a lot more feeble if he were ill.
Okay.
I would probably try to talk to the people who say they witnessed the will,
Okay.
because those are the people who would say, yes, he wrote the will and witnessed the will. The other thing you could do is to get a handwriting expert,
Okay.
which would really speak to whether this is the man's handwriting or not. I mean, you have to know whether it's worth it to you, but that is the ultimate. So first of all, I would bear in mind that he was ill. I would speak to the witnesses who
Okay.
said they witnessed the will. And if I still have my doubt, I would get the services of a handwriting expert.
In the event that it is in fact the wife's handwriting, what can be done?
Well, the will, you could use that evidence to show that the will is not valid.
Okay.
If the will is not valid, he will go back to having died intestate, and then the property will be shared for the wife and all of the children.
Okay.
So all of the children would get a half of the property, and the wife would get a half.
Wow.
So
Yippee.
then that person would have a share in it.
Yippee, that's good.
But
I mean,
again, as I said, it's a process. that maybe you go and go like the uncle and say, I can't bother.
True.
So, you know,
True.
a lot of this is very personal and depends on how much energy you want to expend on
True.
it, you know.
That's the thing about it. When it comes to the court, we have to understand that it's a lengthy process. Thank God they're trying to cut it down. Hope
Right.
it works for us. But it's a lengthy process, so we have to be willing.
Stick with it.
Willing to.
And
then
not
the
only that,
compensation feels so good at the end of the
This
day.
compensation feels good, but there are some people who believe that you should not compensate the attorney. They should just work for years and years. It's like that's their job.
Okay.
So they need to be compensated at the same time for their job. So all of that you have to take into the mix and make your decision as to what you want to do. I always advise, if in doubt, go in and get a consultation, get some advice and make a decision as what you want to do from there. So you can get an idea, what am I facing? What are the costs? And then you could decide, is this something I want to do? Is this something I can manage, I can bear to do?
Okay, beautifully said. There goes the attorney at law there at Scott Borising and Bonnick. And of course, she's here giving you advice and allowing you to know better your rights. And of course, they're located at 10 to 12 Bryan Crescent Road in Maypen. So if you need any advice, you can visit them there. 3 sisters, not true?
Yes, we're 3 sisters and we have 2 other female attorneys. I know the men don't like it, but we're all female firm right now.
But I think that the females, they're firmer too and stern, and they will defend you because,
Of course.
I don't know, they have this females have this thing when it comes to burden, they understand and they know.
Yes.
Yes, so they can
And they have a lot of
sympathize and
sympathy and empathy
empathize
for people.
Definitely, Scott Borising and Bonnick they're there for you. This and every Thursday, you can get advice from them also. You'll not only see her face, but you'll see others here advising you on your rights. They're there to advise you, so you can go by them, as well as you can stay tuned to GenSat TV on a Thursday, 7:30, to hear more from them. This has been from a legal desk. If you want to send your questions, you can call us at 792-7551. You can also email us at generalsatellite@yahoo.com. This has been from a legal desk. This is Nicola Scott Bonnick, attorney at law at Scott Borising and Bonnick there. Thank you so much for joining us.
From the legal desk, this and every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Join us as we deal with your legal issues, questions, and concerns. Also get legal advice from the Scott Borising and Bonnick attorneys at law firm. We take the attorneys right to your doorstep. This and every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. right here on GenSat TV.